Everybody, we are on location. I'm here in Vienna, Illinois. It's on Friday, the day before Tunnel Hill starts, and I am very happy to be here with Traci Falbo, and she is going to be, I'm so happy she's speaking to us because she just came from the high school, spoke to all the students there. She is speaking at the dinner tonight, and she's made time for us as well, so I'm really appreciative of that. A little bit about Traci. She is a 45-year-old mother of two, full-time pediatric physical therapist, and an accomplished American ultra runner. 11 years ago, in her mid-30s, Traci began running to lose weight. After losing 80 pounds, Traci set her sights on running her first marathon. So since then, Traci has run a marathon in every state, some of those multiple times. And then more impressive than that, she's also won 22 of them. And to keep going, she is a two-time member of USA's 24-hour team. She's completed the Grand Slam of ultra running and broke the American 48-hour and World 48-hour indoor track records. And she also held the American record for the 100-mile trail from November of 14 through February 2015. Whew! Thank you. Welcome, Traci.
Oh, thank you.
That's a lot in a relatively small time, too.
It is. It's been a whirlwind, and it's been very exciting.
Oh, thank you for being here. I want to start with, instead of jumping into running, I'm actually very curious about your job. So you're a pediatric physical therapist, and from what I understand, too, it's little ones that you deal with.
Birth to 3. So,
wow. So what kind of things are you dealing with then?
Well, so it's an early intervention program. Every state has them. They all are boxed a little differently based on how the state chooses to do it. But basically, we go into each person's home and treat the child in the home. On rare occasion, it's at a daycare. But we basically go in when a child's not meeting their gross motor milestones and help them to work on various things. So I'm a physical therapist, so I work on the gross motor activities like sitting, walking, running, jumping, things like that.
Oh, that's got to be really rewarding.
It is very rewarding.
That's so cool. And I guess it makes sense that those are out there, but I just never thought of a pediatric physical therapist. Or when I do, I almost think of older kids, sports injuries and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
So I think that's absolutely fascinating. That's really cool. So, of course, your weight loss is, very impressive. Is that something that you had always struggled with weight, even when you were younger? Or was it one of those things more of kind of once you got married, the full-time job, the kids, that's kind of when it is that.
It was
I
more
totally
that
understand
way.
that.
I was active in high school and did sports, but I wasn't really a standout athlete by any means. And I probably weighed 140 in high school. And, it just crept up. You get pregnant, you lose weight, you don't quite lose all the weight, and then you do it again, and then you don't quite lose all that weight, and then depression and whatnot. I just ate. So ended up 213 pounds. Wow. And, I got down to around 130 at my lowest. I sit around 135 now, but it was a good 80 pounds.
So was there, a lot of times when you hear people who are very successful at losing weight, there was kind of just that one defining moment that kind of triggered it for them. Was it kind of just a slow trying to do it, or was there a defining moment that kind of clicked and you're like, I've got to do something?
Oh, there's that one defining moment. Okay. I think, everybody wants to lose weight if you're overweight. Oh, I want to do it. But in order to actually commit, there has to be some defining moment where you're just like, oh, I've had enough. And for me, it was, I had gone to Hawaii. It was an opportunity. My parents said, hey, we've got a timeshare. You can stay for free. You just have to pay for your tickets. I'm like, oh, heck yeah. So went, and I'm a scuba diver. So had pictures from the boat of me in a swimsuit. And I mean, you see yourself in the mirror and you go, yeah, I'm heavy. I should do something. But it was then you see a picture of yourself, and then it's so much different than looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And a picture of me in a swimsuit heavy made me want to vomit. So that was all it took.
That was the moment.
It pushed me over the edge.
We had somebody who's a listener and he's within our Facebook group. And in fact, he's here. He'll be running his first 50 tomorrow.
Awesome.
His name's BJ, and BJ lost 160 pounds.
That's incredible. That's a whole person.
Isn't that? It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think about it. That's more than I weigh right now. So yeah, it is a whole person. And so he was kind of wondering from your experience, he wanted to ask whether it was more running or diet that played the biggest impact in the weight loss.
Yeah, I personally think, like, just in general, I think it's like 80% diet.
Yeah, I do too.
Because I started out exercising with a friend at the gym, and in 6 months I lost 15 pounds. And it was like, granted I wasn't running like oodles of miles. I mean, I was walking and jogging and getting quicker as I went, but it was like, why is this not coming off? And my mom said, hey, dummy,
Love mom.
Are you looking at what you're eating? And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm eating that bad. And she's like, well, why don't you calculate your calories for 2 weeks and see how that goes? And I was like, wow, what's a portion? A lot smaller than I thought it was.
Oh.
So
now, do you follow any kind of diet's not necessarily the right word, but maybe nutritional philosophy now, or you just kind of moderate everything, or do you?
I eat normal people food. I'm not on any, I'm not gluten-free. I'm not vegan. I'm not the OFS, the fat stuff.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I eat like regular food. So, I typically have English muffin yogurt, Greek yogurt in the morning. I eat like a sandwich and baked lace for lunch, and then, whatever.
So you really do eat real people.
Yeah. I like dessert. That's my trouble spot. Like ice cream and cookies and cakes and sweets are my problem. And as long as I stay off of that, I don't, gain too badly. But I eat like regular food, pizza. I eat sandwiches and pasta and all kinds of stuff.
Awesome. You don't hear much of that anymore. Everything's very kind of, like you said, it's the gluten-free, vegan, all the other kind of stuff. So I like hearing that. That's interesting. So you decided, after you lost the weight, decide to go and try a marathon. Had you run any shorter distances before you decided to jump into the marathon?
Yeah, I was doing, I had run high school cross country and I actually ran in college, but I ran like JV for a D3 school and ran like 22-minute cross country 5Ks, which won't get you anywhere in college, really.
But it sounds cool because you can say you ran in college.
Sure. I guess so. But basically I've probably done, some maybe 5Ks, 10Ks, whatnot, but not very many. I mean, I lost the weight in about a year and a half, and in the process I also got divorced somewhere in there. And for those people who've been divorced, it's kind of like a fruit basket upset with your friends. You seem to have a lot of couple friends, and then you get divorced, and none of the friends know which way to go, so you end up with no friends. And so I joined a running group really to meet people. And like the day I did, I met a guy named Tom who's actually running a 100-miler this weekend, hoping for his second finish in a sub 24. Ooh. And he said, well, I'll train with you and teach you, how to train for a marathon. So I just immediately jumped in and trained with him.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So tell us a bit about that first marathon experience.
Well, I think, anytime you do a first marathon, you go out and you don't quite know what to expect, and I always set goals. So I set multiple goals and kept my fingers crossed, but like pretty much every other time I ran out too fast and died a little, but still managed to accomplish most of my goals in the process.
So what were your goals for that first marathon?
I wanted to finish.
Oh, that's always,
I wanted to qualify for Boston.
That's a big first marathon goal.
It is. Well, I wanted to run under 4 hours, and then my ultimate big goal was to qualify for Boston, which at the time was a little bit easier. For the Open, it was 3:40 instead of 3:35. So it was older when they hadn't cinched the standards up quite as much, but...
And then, so the question, of course, then, did you do it?
I did. Yeah. I ran 3:30:2:59.
Wow.
Yep.
So you kind of smashed your A goal for...
I did, but then I ran a marathon the next year and ran slower, and ran a marathon the year after that and ran slower, and then I said, I hate this. I suck. I'm never running another marathon again. Long distances suck, and I don't like long runs, so I'm not doing it anymore. So.
Oh, I love the famous last words. Yep. Yeah, long distances suck, and now marathons are maybe a warm up. That's it. So, what changed your mind? Because clearly you didn't stop.
No, so I took a year off of that, and so I think, and somewhere in there I met my now husband, and the year I didn't I didn't run any races. We got married. And it wasn't like he didn't support me. He was at my first marathon, actually. But I had a friend that said she wanted to go do the Goofy. And it was a half marathon. It was the second year for it. And it's a half marathon on Saturday and a full on Sunday. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, run a half marathon one day and then run a full marathon the next. And she's like, oh, they have all the characters out on the course and you can stop and take pictures. And I love Disney. So I was like, she's like, we don't have to run very hard. We can just have fun and run. And I was like, well, okay. So I realized then that I could run and have fun again. Like, I had run the 32:59 and I was so stoked that I thought every time I ran, I needed to beat that time. And I sort of had sucked the fun out of it. I got so excited and so wrapped up in it too soon that I was like, if I can't beat that time, then I don't want to do it anymore. And then it was like Disney brought it back for me that it could be fun.
The magic of Disney.
It did.
That's interesting. I feel like a lot of people kind of fall into that. And I even went through that a little bit where my second marathon was my fastest marathon. Actually, still even now. And that was back in 2003. And it stopped being fun for a while. And that was one of the reasons then why I started going longer distances. Which I don't know why that seemed like more fun at the time. I should have just gone to Disney now looking at it. I did this all wrong. So then what prompted you to want to start doing it then in every state? How do you go from that jump?
Well, Disney was the problem because they have really cool medals. And my husband, then I started looking for races with cool medals because I had done Air Force, I think. And I'd done Boston, and I did Boston the year they colored it. You know, sometimes Boston was kind of plain, but then they've gotten cooler. And I was like, I wonder where else nearby has cool medals. So I started looking around. My husband joked that I was a medal whore. So I'd done one.
We all kind of
I know. So I found a cool one in Nashville that had these wooden laser cut monkeys.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then in Texas, in Kingwood, Texas, the 50 States Marathon people, they have the biggest medal in the U.S., so of course I had to go there. Yeah. So I went there and met them and thought, wow, that's cool. I'd already done one in like 4 or 5 states at that point, and I thought, oh, 50 states, that's awesome. And then from there, it just spun into, okay, well, I'm flying all the way out to Oregon. Can I get one in Washington and do one on each day? So, you know, you do back-to-back marathons, and somebody's like, well, if you can do that, you can do a 50. If you can do a 50, you can do a 100, and then
it just snowballs from there. One of the things I heard, I think it might have been on another podcast that was really interesting. So at one point you were averaging about 25 marathons a year.
Yeah, I did that for about 3 years.
Yeah. And what I found really interesting about it is that you were talking about how you kept getting faster.
Yeah, to a point.
But even still, I found that really interesting because kind of most of the experience that I've seen with people who do that, they tend to do the opposite where they slow down and it's almost that quantity over quality. How do you think you were able to do that? What was
you can't race them all.
Right.
Like, again, 50 states can get expensive. And thankfully, the time I was doing it, ticket prices were lower. But I got into pacing because I was like, how can I do this and not have to pay for everything and make it a little bit cheaper? And, you know, so I found a guy and offered to pace. And he gave me a shot. And he happens to run pace groups in various states. So I did a good job for him in Illinois, and so then he let me pace here and there. And so, you know, you'd get a free room, a free entry, maybe you'd get, on occasion, shoes, which was a rarity, or, you know, clothes or something, and usually free pasta dinner. And so I was like, well, heck, that's, you know, half the battle right there. So, you know, a lot of the races I did, I paced. So, of course, you're not supposed to pace anything faster than what you can race, like 20 to 30 minutes. Right. So, you know, it would force me to slow down and not like race them all. And I think that's what saved some of it. Mm-hmm. So I raced some and some I did for fun. And I knew how to do stuff for fun at that point after Disney. So I didn't kill myself at every one. So
it was that being able to balance between having times where you could push the pace and get faster and then having fun and pacing stuff. That's cool. Yeah, I guess some people, what would you do? Would you train much in between would you recover?
Yeah, usually. I mean, if you're doing 20 a year, you've got, 2 long runs a month. So you do a couple long runs with a medal and then you race one or two, you know?
So were you running much at all during the week or just pretty much just on the weekends? Or?
Yeah, I'd still run during the week, but they, maybe 5 miles or 6 miles or, and maybe, I ran 5 days a week. So I always took 2 days off. So.
Okay. Oh, I like that. And then you talked about pacing. I thought I saw somewhere too that at one point at the New York City Marathon, you'd actually helped guide some blind runners.
Yes, I was.
That sounds really, yeah, tell us about that experience.
It was very fun. I was actually supposed to pace a wheelchair athlete from a Spanish country. I can't remember now. Spanish-speaking country. I speak Spanish, so I'm semi-fluent. I can have a conversation, but anyway, he had problems with his visa or something, so they kind of had several of us thrown together to help some Russian contingent they weren't aware was coming. It was through the Achilles group. And so there were about 3 or 4 of us that helped pace 2 Russian men. And they were visually impaired. So we basically served as sort of a path clearing method because New York's so busy and they had visual impairments. So we kind of ran in front of them as like in an arc and sort of cleared the way.
Cleared the way.
Yeah.
That's a really cool experience. So you talked about kind of everything snowballed from there. Since you can do all these, you can do the 50K, you can do the 50 mile. What was your first ultra? Do you remember?
In all technicality, I did Grandfather Mountain Marathon on Saturday, and there was another marathon in the same town. This is in North Carolina.
That's a tough one.
It is, but the other one was flat, and it was like out and back on a bike path. And, of course, it was mainly for maniacs and people that were doing lots of races. And so I wanted to set the course record because it seemed doable. So I did that. And then they had a 50K course record, too. So I just kept going to set the 50K course record. And, it wasn't very stout or great, or I don't even remember what it was. But so that would have been technically my first one. But I don't know that I count that so much as I did a 50 miler in 2011 in October 2011 on my way to my first 100 as training for my first 100 in December of 11.
So that's kind of what you feel like is the first one. Jumping back to marathons for a second, because you were talking about winning and setting course records. The first time you won a marathon, what was that like? Did it feel surreal, or was it kind of like, did you feel like it was a fluke, or did you feel like it was earned?
Well, again, that was that one in North Carolina.
So it was the same one.
First
okay.
Win. But it wasn't like there weren't that many people, and they had various start times, and so it wasn't like, you run and break the tape and whoa, very exciting necessarily. But because you didn't even know somebody behind you could start later and could have
that is really anticlimactic.
It really was.
So you come in first place.
I don't know that I really count that one.
You cross the line, you've won, but you don't know you've won at the point.
Yeah, they had like a white erase board where they'd had people, write their times. And of course there were people there. It was legitimate and it was timed and marked and all that stuff. But, there were people that started later than me, so somebody else could have.
So you had to stand there and wait to see if somebody.
Well, we drove home. We ran a race Saturday and Sunday, and we had to get home to work on Monday. So, we ran earlier in the day, and so we knew there were people behind us. But we had a 10-hour drive home. So
when did you find out that you actually did win?
I think later that night or in the morning. I found out online. So.
Yeah, that's about as anticlimactic.
That one is really anticlimactic.
So tell me about so then when your second win was that.
So my second win is really like the one where I was like, oh my God, I just won a marathon.
So I really did. Okay. So tell us a bit about that experience. Which marathon was that?
It was at the Flying Monkey Marathon, I believe. And it's just the one with the cool wood laser medal in Nashville. I ran and I had no idea that I could win a race. And it was, I felt like I was an average high school runner and I didn't think I was that great of a marathoner. And just to come through and be the first female, it's a small race, maybe 300 people at most. It's not like I won New York or Boston or something.
No, but it's still.
But it was still like super cool. Like, oh my God, I just won a marathon. Like, just super excited. And, my name came out. You go on Marathon Guide.
Yeah.
Every Sunday or Monday, they put in the results of the weekend. Of course, it's online, but it was like, oh my gosh, my name's in there,
So at what point, after how many wins then, because you have 22, just marathons, just 22 marathon wins, at what point do you start thinking, okay, maybe there's something here, maybe I really am better than I think I am?
I still don't think I'm good at a marathon. So I never thought, woohoo, I think, I've just managed to be at the right race at the right time or run.
22 times you've managed to do that.
Yeah, there's small races. most of them. I don't even know what the biggest one was. I realized, there were some, I ran some good times, certainly, but I've broken 3 once, and that was my goal to do last year. And of course, the race I broke 3 at, I was like 6th or 7th or 9th, or I don't know. I was top 10 maybe, but that's just not my distance. So I don't know.
What felt better, winning or finally breaking that 3 hour?
Oh, breaking 3. That's the last running goal I've wanted to accomplish. Not that I'm like done. I'm not done. I have other goals. But like of all the goals I've set for a long time, that's the last one to fall that I'd like really wanted. And so I finished that one and said all sorts of bad words because I was so excited, and my husband's like, "You need to be quiet."
He's like, "Yeah, that's awesome. I love that." So kind of hitting those big goals, how you were on the Team USA, the 24-hour team, twice.
Well, so I just was on a 3rd time in July. I need to update my website.
That's right. Because I was wondering. So Belfast was number 3.
Yep. And then I was on the 100K team once. So I've been on 4 USA teams, which is so cool. Like, I can't think of anything that's actually more exciting than that.
So how does it feel the first time? So you get excited because you've made it on, and you're on that 24-hour team. But when that package shows up in the mail with that Team USA singlet, cool. How cool is that?
It's the same stuff the Olympians wear.
Yeah.
So you get all this gear, and I don't know. You just feel so excited and so honored to represent your country, even though that sounds odd. certainly the military is a much better way, I think, necessarily to represent your country, but there's still something to doing it and to wearing USA on your chest. And, you want to be a good role model for your country, and you want to do well. And there's nothing that makes you want to work harder than Team USA on your chest. And knowing that you have to run as a team. So, no matter what distance, there's team scoring and individual scoring. So, if it comes down to you're a scorer, other people are relying on you for gold, silver, bronze, whatever it is. So, you just can't stop.
Yeah, there's that little bit of extra pressure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Belfast a little bit. We had Harvey Lewis on just after Belfast and after his Badwater again this year. So he talked a little bit about it, but I know you had a little bit of a tough time there. Yeah. But you were able to, jump back in. You didn't call it a day. So talk a little bit about that, and then also about the drama. It was like an ongoing thing with the timing. So tell us a little bit about the Belfast experience.
I had run my 24 hours. I was 4th in the world the first time around. I was 2nd in the world the second time around. So I really had big goals going into Belfast the 3rd time around. And things went fine for everybody until about 10 hours. And then all of a sudden the clock froze up. So then you wonder, every time I go around, is the mat counting my laps? And we were assured, everything was fine, blah, blah, blah. And this is extremely unusual that something like this would happen in a world championship. And we were all assured it was fine and that they were collecting data and blah, blah, blah. And so we just kept running. And I would say about 12 hours in, I just started getting dizzy. Like, my vision was blurry. I was getting dizzy. I was like almost passing out. And so they brought me off the course and talked to medical, and they gave me they thought my electrolytes were down despite the fact I was taking in plenty of things. I thought I was doing the same plan I always do. I don't know why it wasn't working. And then basically I felt better and started running again. And then like an hour or two later, it was worse than that. And then I did start passing out. And then I started vomiting. And I couldn't get up. Every time I stood up, I'd get faint, I'd vomit, and my head, the room was spinning. So they finally took me to the medical tent, and I ended up in there for, I don't know how long, way too long. At the point then, like, my race is gone. You can't catch up once you've been out for hours with people who've not been out for hours. So I went back out on the course to cheer people on as soon as I could stop vomiting every time I got upright. And I cheered for people for about 45 minutes, and then I finally felt like I could eat something again. So I ate some potato chips and drank some Coke, and God, I felt so guilty sitting there watching people go around and like a hypocrite cheering for people. I just couldn't do it. And I'm like, I knew my miles aren't going to matter, but I didn't feel right sitting there. So I asked my husband if he knew where my chip was. And he's like, why? And I'm like, I'm going to go back in. And Pam Smith's husband was like, seriously, you're going to go back in? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, all right. Yeah, that's awesome. So, there's nothing against the rules for me to go in and run with other women on my team. So I thought, you know what? I'm a freaking spy. I'm going to go tell everybody where everybody is. I'm going to tell people how people are doing, because you see people on occasion, but you don't know. And we didn't know where the mileage was because the things were down. So I was going to try to run around and encourage everybody, run with everybody for a while, who I knew were our 3 leading scorers, and keep them going. So I did that for a couple laps, and one of the leaders who had been 4th, the second year I ran, she finished, she was 3rd in the world. So she was one behind me. The previous championships had been running really well, and she was down to walk. So I walked with her and talked with them for a while. And, you get to meet people and they're friends. And I felt bad that she was having a bad race too, but she was like, I'm done. I keep trying to run and I keep falling down, smashing my face. I'm just going to walk for here on out. So I'm running around telling my teammates, okay, the girl from Sweden's down. So blah, 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 blah. We might be sitting in this spot. So I did that for a little while. And then Pam Smith's husband, Pam was in 3rd for our team. And he said, will you run with Pam for the rest of the time? So I'm like, sure. He's like, she's dying. You need to keep Pam going. So that became my goal for the rest of the race, was to keep Pam going. And of course I cheered for the men and the women as I ran around. But, Pam was amazing. She hated me the whole time I ran with her, and I knew it. So I told her, I don't know what you want. Do you want me to talk to you? Do you want me to sing to you? Do you want me to shut up? And so I did various of those things, and all of that helped. And, her last, we ran sub-8s the last 2-3 laps. She's a fantastic runner, and she just kicked it in. I said, Pam, we got to go if you want to hit 150. That was her goal. I said, we got to go. And I said, we don't know exactly where you are. You're close. You're either a mile over, or you're going to be a mile under. So we need to go. And she kicked it in. So, we get done and we've won by half a lap or something. I don't know. It's a ridiculous amount. And then, so we get team gold. Yay. I was upset at how I had done personally, but I was glad everybody was thrilled I stepped back in and was happy that I could help the team. And I felt good about helping them. But my kids came to watch my first ultra for the first time, and I felt like a failure.
Oh,
so
that's kind of heartbreaking.
It is. But my son said, you know what? There were some other people that had bad races and they quit and went home, basically.
That's an amazing lesson.
And my son said, you know what? I was in the medical tent, and one of the other runners that we knew had a bad race, and he quit and went back to the hotel. And he goes, Mom, I'm so proud that you stayed and you helped your team, and you should be proud of that. And this is an 8-year-old boy,
Oh my gosh.
And that just made me melt. So I felt a little bit better that my race didn't go that way, but at least my kids got something out of it. I wanted them to see I was tough and I'd persevere and I was a good runner, and that's not quite what they got, but
well, I think that's exactly what they got, though.
In any case, it came back that they were reanalyzing the results.
Yes, yeah.
Weeks later, and they decided that other people should have extra laps, and so then we protested because it looked like Katie Nagy didn't have some laps in there, so they took gold away from us for a while, and then we got it credited back. And the same thing happened with the men's. The men had bronze and then went to nothing and then back to bronze because we had to protest and show that we had laps that they hadn't accounted for. And it was just the biggest cluster ever.
Yeah, I mean, just watching it was because I was watching a lot of it while trying to do some of it live and stuff. And then all of a sudden we're like, it's dark. They don't have any of this. And then so people are doing the Facebook Live feeds and they're like, we have no idea what's happening. Right. And then you get the results, and then several weeks later to be told, nope, that's not what it is. Right. And then several weeks later again to be told, right. Yeah, that's not something you expect at that level. No. So I want to talk about 2013. So you did a lot that year and kind of capped off with the Grand Slam, which every time I've heard you talk about the Grand Slam, it's this incredible thing that very few people have done. Right. And kind of in your usual very humble way, you're like, I didn't do a good job of it.
Oh, I didn't. It was awful. I ran the 24-hour championships in May. So here's what I did.
So let's hear 2013.
I came off of running 20 to 25 marathons a year, 2010, 2012, right? So I'm getting into ultras. Okay, no worries. I can run ultras in the same fashion I'm running marathons, right? You just ding, 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 bang them out like they're crazy. So So I ran the 24-hour championship, like mid-May, and then I got into Western States. I had a friend, Keith Straw, who many people know in the marathon realm. He runs around in pink tutus, who's a phenomenal marathoner and ultra runner. And I met him actually when we applied for Western. We were running some marathon in Kansas, Pilgrim Pacer, and we had both put in for Western. He said, if you get into Western, you have to do the slam. Not many people do the slam, and hardly any women finish the slam. And here's the picture from last year, and there were no women finishers, and you need to do the slam with me. I said, okay, Keith, if you get in and I get in, first time applicant, I said, I'll do the slam. We both got in. I'm like, crap, got to do the slam. So
that's so. What are the odds of that?
So I do the 24-hour. 2 weeks later, I go to the Western States training camp and I run whatever that is, 70 miles, 60 miles, I don't know. Then the next weekend, I think I ran a trail marathon. Then the next weekend I ran 2 road marathons, I think. And then I ran, I don't know, a 12-hour, and then I ran a trail marathon, and then I had a week or 2 off, and then I started the slam. So I don't know, it was crazy, but I started the slam in a big hole. That's how that started. So I ran Western, and I got into 10th place by Forest Hill, and I was so excited. And, you still have like 32 miles or 38 miles when you get into Forest Hill to go, though. But my pacer, who was a friend of mine, he was stoked, too. He's like, man, you're in 10th. And I'm like, I don't know if it was Cassie Scallon or who was behind me, but he's like, you got to keep going or Cassie's going to get you. So right when you get into Forest Hill, though, that's where it's my race, right? Because I'm from 500 feet. And I run roads more than anything. And it's finally runnable, right? So, man, and you take off out of Forest Hill and it goes downhill and you got this like 5 miles of downhill before you get to Cal Street and all that. And, man, so we just cranked. Bam, 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 bam. And it was a hot year. Man, I should have just kept doing what I was doing. I was a newbie, It's my second 100-miler. I've done 150 miler before this. And I'm just like on fire. So, man, by like 10 miles in, I'm just puking my guts out. To the point, like, this guy who's my pacer's emergency room nurse, he says, I've never seen so much come out of one person before, right? So I'm totally empty.
And he's an ER nurse?
Yeah, he's an ER nurse. So we get to the river and they weigh me and they want to pull me because I've lost like, I don't know, 10% of my body weight or something. I mean, 10%. Seriously, I'm not exaggerating, but, and I'm like not overly, my brain power is not exactly there.
Sure.
And, my pacer knows I'm in the slam. I got to finish this race. So this guy who came and talked to me was really concerned, and my pacer said, emergency room nurse, she's fine, blah, blah. And he goes and leaves to go get a medical person, and he goes, we need to leave now or they're going to pull you. So that was pretty much, and so we just start crossing the river. So you snuck out when they went
to go get the medical person?
So we start crossing the river. And, so we get across the river, and then you start heading up. I don't know if it's Green Gate or what, I don't remember all the names, but, I was so, like, just low on anything. I was dizzy, so he held my hand so I didn't fall down as we walked up the hill. And so I ended up walking in the last pretty much 20 some miles, about 5 miles, like around No Hands Bridge. I finally felt like I could run again, but then it's a big hill, so why bother? I've walked this full way, but so it was kind of a wah. I ended up, over 24 hours and started the slam. And then, so that was kind of it didn't quite go how I pictured.
And then you think, I just only have 3 more to go.
Right, so I go to Vermont and I'm pissed off that I've just had this piss poor performance at Western, right? So I take off like a bat out of hell. And I get to halfway faster than the course record, which is Cami Simic's record. So I'm at 50 like in 8 hours or something. I think her record's 16 or I don't know. But I'm under her course record because I remember seeing a marker, almost like, like a garage sale sign, like a big thing that says go this way or whatever, and it says 50 miles, blah, blah, blah. I think they honestly had her time out there, and I thought, wow, I'm doing really good. And then of course, you know how that goes, so blew up. And still ended up finishing second, but ran 19 hours or something. I mean, I obviously died hard on the last bit. And then I got to Leadville and I was sick, and so... Was that the altitude or... No, I was sick from a cold, just being run down.
Even before you start,
you're sick. And I couldn't sleep. So 2-3 in the morning, I think the race starts at 4. I haven't slept all night. Oh. So I decide it must be 2 in the morning. I go out and run for 20 minutes thinking if I run, maybe then I can sleep. So I got about an hour's sleep, and then I went into that race. And mile 15, I told them, all my group pacers, I'm like, it's going to be a long day. And it went well till about 50, and then I walked about 4 steps back up Hope Pass and had to stop and rest, and walked 4 steps up Hope Pass and stopped and rest. So that was rough. And then by the time I got to Wasatch, I was so over. 100 milers. I didn't want to run anymore. But I got it done despite having a tantrum, calling my pacer names, sitting on the ground, refusing to move, and hallucinating.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
Somehow he managed to pull me through, which I'm eternally grateful that, one, he's still my friend after
yes.
how horrible I was, and two, that he got me through it, because it means a lot to actually have finished it.
It's a big, think back. I had a chance to interview Denise Barassa.
Oh, yeah.
And she had talked about doing it. And, I mean, anybody I've ever talked to, I don't know anybody, though, who goes and does that and thinks that they did wonderful and it was a great experience. I mean, I think that's part of that.
Ian Sharman does.
Well, yeah.
He's doing it again, I think, in 18 or 19, and he's encouraged me. He goes, you need to do it again. I'm like, no, it was awful. Like, I don't know why you think I want to do this again. And he's like, oh, come on, for old time's sake, we should slam together again. No, Ian, we didn't slam together the first time. You were like hours ahead of me every race. We didn't do it together, and I'm not doing it again.
So you're not going to do the pact if you get in, make it into
No, I did that once. It was stupid. So
that's how you get in, though. You go, oh yeah, sure. Tell you what, if I get in.
Well, you know what? If that's, I would like to get into Western this coming year. So if all I had to say to Ian was, Ian Sharman, I tell you what, if I get into Western, I'll slam again the following year. Because he told me, all you have to do is get into Western this year, be top 10, meaning 2018, be top 10, then you can get into Western. So he must want to slam in 2019, I guess, because he wasn't slamming this coming year. He wants to slam the year after. So, I don't know.
So you got to go back-to-back years.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, or just say it, go do the one, and then, sorry, I can't. Something came up.
I'm sure I could do it better if I did it again. I just don't know that I'd want to do it again.
I don't blame you. How do you train for something like Western and Leadville living in Indiana?
Well, I think I did poorly.
So if you were to go back to Western, what would your plan? How would you train for it then?
Well, you can't train for altitude. I mean,
right.
You really can't. I actually borrowed a altitude tent, but and then my pacer nurse friend took blood samples to see if it changed anything, and I told him not to tell me during the time if I created more blood samples. I don't know. But that altitude tent didn't work for me. So he actually said my count got worse as I went.
Interesting.
And he thought maybe that I wasn't able to recover as much because I was in the altitude tent, and you were not getting as much oxygen. But it didn't help increase my blood. It actually made it worse. And I've had trouble with anemia in the past too, so, it could have been some of that. But I think what I would do is, like, what I'd found out later was Ian and Nick, they would run a race and then they'd take a whole week off. Well, I was back to running right away. I was still trying to do hard workouts and things in there. And I think I'd do a lot more just recover and survive in between the races. And I think I would have been a lot better off and be able to do better in the future than what I tried to do in between the races.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I didn't know. This was my second, third, fourth, and fifth 100 milers, and I learned a hell of a lot in that period of time.
You going into Western Western was your third?
My second 100.
So your third ultra and your second 100?
No, it was my third 100.
That's a pretty pretty big jump. Okay, so you learned not to drive yourself into the ground for 2013. But so let's look up 2014 ultra sign up. So you learned valuable lessons. We're going to take it nice and easy in 2014. So January, you didn't do at least on ultra sign up. So this is just what's on ultra sign up. So that means that there's very well could be other races.
Yeah, I'm sure I did marathons in there.
Yeah. So in February, we did you did the Destin Beach Ultra Run. So that was a 50 miler, and you came in first woman there. So then March.
That's a really fun race, and Zane is a great race director.
Cool.
That's super fun.
So then March, we go to Land Between the Lakes, which of course is another Steve Durbin.
Absolutely.
Race.
Great race director also.
And so that was another 50 miler and second woman at that.
Yep.
Then April, we jump over to Umstead, do the 100 there.
Yep.
Second there.
Yep.
Another one in April, but this one was just a little trail marathon there. Second there. So now we're in May, so now here comes another 100. So you do the Keys 100. Second woman there. I don't see this as slowing down yet, but so then in June, Kettle Moraine.
Maybe I didn't learn so much.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Kettle Moraine, another 100. First woman there. Then we jumped to, so July was kind of a quiet month, which I guess gave you the energy. So in August, it was 6 days in the Dome where you did the 48 hour.
Right.
And it was there that you set the American and world record for the 48-hour indoor, and you ran 242 miles in 0.35. Is that right? I've seen the points different.
It's 0.093, something. Yeah, somewhere they got it wrong and gave me an extra lap or something.
But so over 242 miles. So going into that, well, wait, let me finish because you weren't done there. The year wasn't done there. So you set a 48-hour world record. November, you come to Tunnel Hill and do the 100 there. And so in the 48-hour, you were also the overall winner, not just the women's winner.
That's always exciting.
Yeah, come to Tunnel Hill, do the 100. Again, overall winner. And also set the women's 100-mile trail record at that as well. And then you still were done and went and did another 24-hour race in December.
Well, I hadn't planned on that 24-hour race, but
I still came in second there.
At the Dome, I thought if I ran 135 the first day, that would be my 24-hour qualifier for the 2015 team. And then a couple girls had some really big results, so I was like, well, crap, I don't think 135 is going to cut it. So I didn't plan on going to Desert Solstice, but I thought if I didn't, I wasn't going to make the team. And it turns out I could have not gone to Desert Solstice and I still would have made the team, but I thought my spot was at risk. So,
and so
I hadn't planned on going to Desert Solstice.
It was over 147 miles that you...
Yeah, that helped. Then I made, for sure, I was on it. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. So that's still, I mean, that's
a heck of a year. Yeah,
but
what you don't hear is then I went to, because I thought I was Superman, I went to Bandera in January and just tanked and had a rough race, and then I figured out I needed to tone it down. So, I mean, I think you can race hard like that for a little while, but then it's only a little while. Yeah. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that's sustainable. I wouldn't do that again ever now. That's too much. It's amazing nothing happened bad in there when I hear you read all that.
But isn't it cool when you step back? Because you're so...
Sure, it was a great year.
I mean, do you ever sit back and really take in what you did, or do you just immediately look to the next thing?
You take in what you do for a little while, but then, I don't know, it's not like...
So when you start off the year...
I don't sit and go, oh yeah, I had a great year last year. I did this and this and this and this. I mean, you celebrate the win and then you move on. But usually it's not, even if you do good, it's still like, oh man, I could have done that better if I did this, this, and this. Or, oh man, it doesn't matter if you win or you're second or you're third or you're fourth or whatever. It's what could I do better? What could I have done better? Or what things could I change? Or why didn't it go as well as it should have been? And I think that's what keeps driving all of us is we want to, keep getting better, keep pushing ourselves, see what we're made of.
That's why we keep doing this crazy stuff.
Yep.
So talk about the 48 hours. So what was that? Did you go in with the intention of setting a record?
I did.
You did? Okay.
And I wouldn't have, if asked, I would have told people, but I'm not the type of person to go, I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. But, at that point, when you talked to me about, was it better to break 3 or to win a marathon? I had a few goals left in my running career. I thought, I'd had some wins. I'd had some finished the slam. I'd done some cool things. But I was like, what do I still want to do? And so I thought, I'd like to break 15 and 100 miler. After the Keys, I thought that was possible. I thought I want to break 3 hours in a marathon. And I thought the coolest thing I could ever do in running would be set American record. So I kind of looked at all the all-time lists and thought, what's feasible? And I thought, well, 24 hours, I knew I was close, but that'd be a push. And I looked at 48 and I thought, that doesn't seem so bad. And of course, none of it seems so bad. Like if you put it on paper, you go, oh, I only have to run X minute per mile pace for this long. That doesn't seem so bad. So I thought, well, 48 hours, that seems doable. So I asked my husband, I said, I want to do this and see if I could set the American record. And he's like, that's, it's stupid. You don't even necessarily like 24 hours when you're out there,
That's stupid. But...
Yeah. But I'll do this. You're saying you're going to do it once and that's it, right? Yeah, okay. One time, just one time. So, I went with that intent, it worked out. I mean, I didn't intend to set a world record. I knew what the world record was, and I set the indoor track record, and it's the second best world time. And I knew what the world record was, and I would have gone after that if I could, but I didn't have it in me that day. I think had I had the shoes I have now and knew about ultras, I think I very well could have said it, because it was a concrete track.
It was a concrete track?
Yeah. And so it took a lot of people out, shin splints and stuff. But, you know, I used to get blisters horribly, so I wore Hokas and had to cut the toes out.
Oh.
And I just would blister even that way. And so I changed shoes like 80 times. I lost a ton of time there, you know, and if I knew what I knew now, of course, that's what you learn.
Of course, yeah.
But I feel like it was within reach because I was 6 miles away from that. But, I was thrilled with it. But my goal was to do that, and my goal was to qualify for the 24-hour team en route. So, I mean, that was kind of ballsy. But, you know, you got to shoot big, and sometimes it works out. Now, that one worked out. Yeah. Like a lot of the other times I've shot for stuff, it hasn't worked out. But that one managed to stick. So you're thankful, and you jump up and down, and you appreciate it all, and just know sometimes the stars align, and when they do, it's awesome.
That's cool. And then, the next one after that, then you talked about having that goal of breaking 15 hours in the 100, and then so the next thing you did after that was Tunnel Hill, where you did.
Yeah.
What was it? What was the time? I don't have it in front of me.
14:45.
Yeah, I knew it was 14 something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that time, that was the American Trail, right?
Yeah, and I felt like that was sort of, on one hand, a little weak. Like, I know this is an easy trail, so
right. It's not
so
technical.
I wasn't quite sure that it really counted. But somebody from, I don't know, I Run Far or something called and interviewed me, and they said, "Well, yeah, we weren't sure either, so we looked up the rules, and USA Track and Field says, blah blah blah. If it's not a concrete or road, whatever, it counts." So I'm like, okay. So, but I didn't hold it for very long, and then Nicole Stutter Calidropoulos, she took it down at Rocky. So,
but you still had it, though.
Records are meant to be broken.
But still, just having that, being able to go under that 15 hours,
that's super cool. Yep.
Yeah, I can't even wrap my head around that. It's awesome. And my coach who coaches me is Corey Woltering, and so
he's super fast.
So
coming back to run the 50 again.
Yeah, and so he's hoping to break his own record.
Nice. What was it, like 5:35 or something?
It was 5:30, I think.
5:30.
So he's hoping to go under 5:30, and I'm
nice.
That's
blazing.
I'm like, I can't. People run marathons in that. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine. So you've learned a lot then from kind of doing a lot. How do you treat recovery now? What do you kind of do for?
I like Pam Smith's idea. She says take a day off for every 10 miles run. So if you run a 100-miler, you take 10 days off. I mean, you can walk and do stuff, but off of running in general. I think that's a good guideline.
So do you move the day after that? Like, do you do a lot of walking and
I don't do a lot of walking, but like I'm sitting around eating burgers and French fries and
see, that's why I love
milkshakes. And
there's so many, like Harvey and stuff. He's out when he just did, Les's, the big guy here, and he's like, I got a streak. I got to go the next day. And I'm like,
forget that.
Sit, eat a burger.
Yeah,
a veggie burger, I guess it is.
No, I'm not doing anything. And if I don't have to drive, if my husband's going to drive the car, I'm going to lay back and I'm going to sleep. And your body just did a ton of work. Like now you go, good job, and you feed it. Your body needs to get that nutrition back. And I'm not suggesting you eat a bunch of crap, but it needs protein and it needs carbs and it needs to be replenished, and you need to drink. And I use Epsom lotion afterwards, which helps with the soreness. It's really great stuff. And I don't use compression in training or running, but I will put them on like a couple days after because I just swell like crazy. And I eat and drink, and if I want to go out for a walk, I'm maybe going out for like a leisurely stroll for 20 minutes, but I'm not like going out speed walking looking for a workout. Like I just ran 100 miles.
Good. I'm covered. I'm good.
Yeah.
What do you think is harder to recover from, something that has like a hilly or maybe not quite mountainous trail, or something that's flat like the timed events or even Tunnel Hill?
I think the longer you're out there, the longer it takes to recover, because I think it taxes your endocrine system more. But
so yours is more about time than kind of terrain, or
Yeah, I think, certainly different things are sore. Like if I do a mountain race and I don't typically do mountains, I'm going to feel sore where I don't normally feel sore. But I also think 100K road is really hard on your body because you're actually running really, it's like speed work for 62 miles and it's on road. So it's a hard surface and you're pounding a lot. So I think that's probably the hardest thing on your body, but I think endocrine system is time. So 48 for sure. That's my first DNF, I thought, which I guess is not on Ultra Sign Up, but
I was just looking at the results. So it was probably when you scrolled it. So you've done so much to get to those, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll. So you don't see those right away.
So I thought I was on a roll. So what you don't see in there is that apparently I didn't learn enough in 2013 because I went to Hallucination 100 like 3 weeks after the Dome and tried to run a 100-miler for fun, and I was not prepared. My body was toast. So I made it like 42, and that was it. And that was my first DNF. That was awful. I bawled and felt guilty and horrible, but my body could not go 100 miles after 3 weeks after 48. It just could not.
So then I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you self-coached then, or do you?
I was self-coached until October of 15, 16. I decided in 17, the couple running goals I had was to break 3 hours, and I thought it would be cool to make the 100K team. And I'm not speedy. I mean, I know you're going to say, oh yeah, right. But in my realm, I can run long distances at a good clip, but I'm not fast in the short.
Okay.
So I didn't feel like I could run 100K in under 8:40 to qualify for the 100K team, and I wanted to break 3 hours in marathon. So I hired a coach who's a 2:18 marathoner in his day and had been on the 100K team 9 times.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm like, that's the person you go to.
Yeah,
you want to get on the 100K team, you want to break 3 hours, they know how to train. So I've been with him since, and he's the first person. I've tried to have other coaches in the past, but we didn't get each other.
Yeah. That's a real personal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd had maybe other coaches maybe for a month here or there. And it was people that I wanted to try to break 3, or I wanted a certain thing. I wanted to try to break 3, and they said, oh, well, in order to break 3, you've got to, it was like look on Macmillan for the time paces, and you got to be able to run a 5K in this, and a mile in this, and I can't do that. Like if you punch in my marathon time, the 2:59 I ran, I can't run any of the shorter distances in the paces it says. I just can't. I don't have that many gears, but I can run a decent clip for a long time. You punch in my 14:45 mile time, it says I should be able to run a 2:38 marathon. That's never happening.
But yeah, and it's so funny because those two things don't, in the real world.
No, they don't equate. I don't think at all. A lot of people want to try to make them equate, but they don't.
And you know what? And I think that's good too, for people talking about a coach is if you find somebody and you don't click, it's okay to say it's not working and move on.
Yep.
So how has your training changed from when you were just kind of going at it on your own and then working with a coach? I know it's different goals, so that's going to change, but
it is. But so I think if you're self-coached and you're being successful, why change anything? So if I'm self-coached and I'm being successful and I don't like hills and I don't like speed work, those are not on my daily list of things to do. So I get a coach and he said, well, obviously if you want to break 3 and you want to run 100K, we're going to do speed work. So that certainly got added. And, I wasn't doing tempo runs or long runs. I pretty much just self-coached, ran 5 days a week. I figured out how many miles I wanted to run every week. And I ran pretty much relatively the same pace, whether it was 5 miles or 20 miles. I slowed down a little bit at 20 miles.
Right.
Not oodles. And, I just ran moderately hard the whole time. I could have a conversation, but it wasn't so hard. I was having to breathe hard and, it was comfortable. So now it's a little less comfortable. Yeah.
It's not as comfortable.
Speed work and hill work and all that kind of stuff. So
I have a question actually, before I jump to his question, I want to find out. So you talked about some of those goals that you're looking at. I know that I had heard you mention one time that you were considering maybe the 6-day. Is that still kind of on the list?
I still am, although I promised my husband I would only do 48 once, so I didn't think it really qualified because 6 days is a whole nother race.
That's completely different.
So I am. I actually, Joe Fegis and Steve Durbin and I are looking at trying to organize a 6-day for 2019.
Oh, cool.
So another indoor dome type thing. So we've been looking at race venues and dates and whatnot, so there's nothing set at this point, but if we get something set, am leaning hard that way. So
that's very cool. And then so that sounds like it would be more of a West Coast then, instead of having to go up to, because the other one was
the one was in Alaska.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we're looking more Midwestern actually.
Oh,
so
perfect. I'm not sure I want to do it or not, but I'm like, it's all those things.
Well, they're going to have 24, 48,
Yeah.
6 days. So, 24 is always a nice step after your first 100. And 2019 gives you, year and a half, 2 years.
But what about, do you have any interest in doing any kind of stage races?
I don't know. I would certainly do some, but that's not on my immediate radar.
What about anything like Vol State or Badwater, any of those?
You know what? I would do Badwater and Heartbeat if it wasn't so much money. I have a hard time spending thousands of dollars for one race, and I'm not big on begging for sponsors. Because you need. I don't know. I've heard people spend $6,000-$7,000 doing it, and I would really like to do it. If somebody wants to, and I'll say this since I'm on the podcast, if somebody wants to, pony up some sponsorship, I'd be happy to. I'd love to go do Badwater. I just can't. I just don't have the time, kids, family, work, blah, blah, to seek out money to do it. And Vol State, at some point, I'll probably do. Big Backyard Ultra, at some point, Laz's crazy races, I would probably do. But I just don't know what my schedule has in store for me just yet. I put in for Western, keeping my fingers crossed, and that's all I know at this point for next year. I'm looking at some other things, but I'm coming back from an injury right now, and I don't want to make any plans until I know I'm solid again.
Makes sense.
So I've been lucky for 5 years without relatively any injuries, and then this year I've had my first one that's taken me out.
Oh,
so
how have you dealt with the mental side of it?
I am better now because I'm running again.
How did your family do while you were injured?
Well, yeah, you get a little snarky, and it's not the same. You can swim, you can bike, it's not the same.
It's not.
So
I know when I have friends and other people who get injured, it's always, please, my apologies to your wife, to your husband, to your whatever, because an injured runner is not a fun person to live with. That does really lead well into the question though that I wanted to ask, and this comes from one of our listeners, and it was within our Facebook group, and he said this is something that we don't talk about a whole lot, and I think he's right, and it's a good topic. His question was, what kind of toll does this take on your personal life, i.e., this support of your spouse, your work being okay with taking the time, how it affects other events and hobbies, etc. And he says, I know if I told my wife I was doing all of that, I'd be served some papers and would need to get a VW van to live in.
The 20 to 25 marathons a year was a push. We definitely went through some struggles at that point. And he basically said, I love that you love to run, but we need more balance. And, I think I was glad that I married somebody that could help me with that. We're both two strong personalities, but somehow it works. If he crews me and I get bitchy, he'll be like, don't talk to me like that. I'm here to help you, and, basically shut your pie hole and go run. And that's exactly what I need. I'm the type of person that needs tough love. So, when I was doing too many marathons, it sort of gets addictive sometimes. You run, you get the runner's high, it's exciting. Oh, next race. And so I just kind of got wrapped up in it and lost that I needed more balance. And so thankfully we worked through that. And he's been there to support me in my races. But I think, from the physical side, there's no way my body could have kept doing what I was doing, regardless. But, he's an awesome man that I don't want to wreck my marriage by running. So, I think you and your partner have to discuss what's feasible, what's a good amount, what's reasonable. And I still run a bunch of races, but it's not nearly as many as I used to. I'm pick and choose, and it's afforded us to travel to some great places and opened up some opportunities that's been incredible. And so, we both have enjoyed it, and he supports me in my running, and I support him in his hobby, and it's a give and take sort of thing.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's important. One last question. It's a very important question, and it's completely selfish. So
Okay, now I'm scared.
No. So tomorrow, 7 a.m., I'm lining up for my first 100.
Which is totally awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm excited. I'm actually, at this point, I'm not nervous yet. I'm just really, I'm excited, have a lot of friends in support here. But I feel like I'm cramming last minute before the exam. What advice can you give me, especially you know the course very well?
Yeah. Well, if you come to the pasta dinner, that's my entire talk tonight is what can you do to make your race the best tomorrow. But
okay, well, there
some brief tips would be, I would say have a plan and stick with it. So if you have a goal time in mind, do you? You don't have to say it out loud.
So, well, I'm coming in with 3 goals.
Okay.
First goal is not to die. That's always
a good goal.
Then to, come in within the cutoff. So
right.
29, 59, 59. Right. And I do feel like based on the training that I have in the course and everything else, and I have said it before, that if everything goes well, I do feel like I could come under 24.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so 24 hours is 14-minute 24 pace per mile. So I would say don't go out faster than 13s. So I think this course is relatively flat and fast. So I think even pacing is going to serve you well. And I know sometimes it's hard to start out that slow, but you can't start out at 10s and expect that it's going to go well. So you have to start out and constantly look at if you run with a Garmin, or do you run with a Garmin?
You know what? For this one, I normally, so I've done both, and I purposefully did not wear my Garmin for this one. One, I won't last the whole time, and so I don't want the whole freak out.
Right.
Which is why I've switched to, I have my old school
watch.
Yeah, my old school Ironman, which I put it on. I'm like, it's so tiny, and you can see all my tan lines from the Garmin around it. And that way, I typically do run better by feel when I get into these situations.
And so in that situation, then, so I was going to say, if you run with a Garmin, you need to look down, and if you're going faster than X pace, you need to slow down. But so if you're running and you're breathing at all hard, or you can't speak full sentences easily, you need to slow yourself down. And just the first half, you should feel like, oh, I need to slow down. I need to slow down. I need to slow down, because if you're not, you're going to pay for it later.
Right. Well, I'm excited. Thank you so much
for
taking the time out. I know you kind of had a very packed schedule today, so
I'm glad I'm not running tomorrow, actually.
Super appreciate it. And then, so before we go, I wanted to make sure I had it here, and we'll link to it in the show notes as well. I had it somewhere here. All of your social media. I know your website is tracifalbo.com, and it's Traci with an I.
Right.
So we'll make sure to do that. I think Instagram is the same thing. It's Traci Falbo.
Yep.
Facebook's all that.
Traci Falbo, and then one is at Falbo Traci.
Which I think that's Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
And why that got set up, I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing when I set it up. So.
That's okay. So we'll make sure to link to all of that so people can kind of follow you on your ventures. Your Instagram pictures are stunning.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there's some really beautiful stuff out there. So thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for listening. And stay tuned. We will see you next week. Thanks.